The following video is based upon true crime content. Therefore, it may contain images and/or language that some find disturbing. For this reason, viewer discretion is advised. Hello, my friends. How are we doing? Check, check, mic check. How can you guys hear me okay? Got a little background noise going on here, a little background music. Thought I'd kind of try to ease into it a little bit. It's been a whole 20 minutes. Oh, where were y'all hanging out at earlier? Y'all over somewhere else hanging out in the chat? Good to see everybody here. Tonight we're going to finish, well, not finish, no. Tonight we're going to start on day 2 of this hearing, and we're going to get into a lot of discussion in regards to the autopsy. You know me, I'm not going to go too deep on it because we've got to be YouTube friendly. But we also, we're going to listen to what the medical examiner has to say. And then we also have the daddy. Daddy's going to testify first. So let's see how that goes. I hope that the audio is okay. I almost want to speed this up by like a 1.25. What do you think? Do you think we should speed it up? If you think so while we're watching, just put it in the chat for me, please. I want to make sure we've got closed captions on. Playback speed is actually, did I already put it on 125? I've got it on 125. Let's leave it there. I think it's going to be fine that way. All right. Let's get to it. Let me turn off this background music. This is her father.
Could you please tell us your name?
Kim Plenty.
And how do you know Courtney?
I'm her father.
Now, Mr. Clenny, you're being called today for phase 2, specifically with respect to financials. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, okay? I see you have a folder there with you. Can you tell us what you have brought with you today?
There's just notes as far as numbers regarding the different accounts and wire transfers and expenses.
Okay, so I would just ask this as we talk about this today. If you need to refresh your recollection at any time, please feel free to do so. If you could just say that you need to do that so that we can be made aware of it, and you can't read from the records, okay? So just then close it up and answer the question, okay? All right, thank you. So let's start. Let's go to wire transfers. At some point in time, were wire transfers made to an account that you have?
Yes.
Okay. And generally, around what time was that?
Mid-April and then early May. Okay. There were 3 total.
Now, can you explain to us?
Okay, so mid-April. So he passed away on April the 3rd, just to give you guys a timeline.
Why those transfers were made?
Well, after April 3rd, Courtney was a mess. I didn't really trust her to handle her finances. one important thing was that her debit card, one of her accounts, was not found, and we didn't know who had it, who had access to her accounts. So we felt like the prudent thing to do would be to transfer the money into one of our kind of dormant accounts and then safeguard it that way. And then as she needed it, we could use it on her benefit.
Now, you used the word she was a mess. Can you just generally describe what you mean by that?
Well, she's been traumatized for quite some time, but especially after April 3rd. And then she was drinking heavily.
Okay. And so with the drink.
Oh, he admits she was drinking heavily. This is interesting because we have more on this drinking heavily thing, guys, in the future. I'm going to bring out some information that we have on this incident that occurred with this gentleman in Texas. Well, this young kid and his father in Texas. We'll get to that in a minute.
Drinking heavily and the traumatization, you felt that she could not adequately take care of her finances.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So to your knowledge, how many bank accounts did Courtney have?
At Bank of America, she had 3. One had a zero balance when I accessed them, and there were 2 others that she had funds in.
And let's talk about those transfers that were made to you. The first transfer, do you recall when that was?
And they referred my notes.
Yes, you may.
Oh, when she noticed the camera was on her, she did that little, oh, I'm upset.
I'm so told. I can again. So the first wires from one account ending in the first wires were on April 12th of this year.
April
There
12th.
was one wire for $121,000, one wire for $1,013,000, and then subsequently in May there was a $50,000 wire as well.
Damn.
And these transfers came from, to be clear, the 2 Bank of America accounts that you know to be associated with Courtney, ending in 2923 and 1712.
I want to go backwards. Hang on.
Transfers came from, to be clear.
I want to hear what he says
There's
about
one
the
wire
money
for-
again.
The first wires were on April 12th of this year. There was one wire for $121,000, one wire for $1,013,000, and then subsequently in May there was a $50,000 wire as well.
Okay.
It's 170.
And these transfers came from, to be clear, the 2 Bank of America accounts that you know to be associated with Courtney, ending in 2923 and 1712.
Yes.
Before we get into the amount in the Wells Fargo, let's just go back to the Bank of America. Once those transfers were made, how much money was left in those Bank of America accounts?
Refer to the notes again.
Yes.
In the account ending in 2923, the balance after the wires was $4,839.24. The account ending in 1712, there was $466.88.
And can you tell us the total of those 2?
Okay, so that's that's $1,183,000 that was transferred over to her parents.
Numbers?
The total of those 2 numbers, a little over $5,300.
Okay. Let me take a look because I think my math is a little bit different. Judge, may I approach Mr. Flynn?
Exactly,
Showing
Laura.
you the document from Defense Exhibit V. I believe, Judge, is it V that was introduced for the records? Thank you. I'm showing you this document, and
Right.
do you see that document?
Sorry, I misunderstood the question. I was giving you the balance the days after the wire.
Ah,
The balance you're asking about is what's in those accounts now.
yes, yes, I apologize. So let me go back then. At that time, when the transfer was made, you're saying there was approximately about 4,000 in there?
There was approximately $4,800 in the 2923 account and $466 and change in the account ending 1712.
Okay,
That was after the wires. The balance that you ask about is today's balance. And that total for those 2 accounts is $11,278.55.
okay, perfect. So let's now go back to the accounts that you have. Those are Wells Fargo accounts?
Yes.
And whose name is that account in?
The personal one of the accounts, his personal account, is in my name and my last name.
At the time that the first wire came in, what was the balance in that account?
It was $12 and change, if I'm correct. It was a dormant account. We really didn't use anything. There were a couple of drafts, and so I transferred money in as I needed to cover the drafts, but we really didn't use that account. So that's why I segregated it for Courtney.
So the three balances that were transferred in that you mentioned, it totals $1,184,000. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Yesterday, the detective testified to believing over $2 million was transferred or belonged to Ms. Clenny. Do you have any information that there was over $2 million?
No, he was incorrect.
And how do you know that it was $1,184,000
Because
only?
I did all the transfers, and I was the only one accessing the account, and I have the bank records from
Now,
both banks, by the way.
let's talk about the expenditures that were made
Okay.
from that $1,184,000. I know there's many, but let's just start with, let's say, the first big expenditure that was done.
Right. So one reason why I want to take control of the account, because I needed CPA to finish her income taxes. And so that was the first big expense. And I got a cashier's check. I was the purchaser, but she was the remitter. And it was for $335,818.
And Judge, I would refer you to Defense Exhibit O, which is a cashier's check in $305,818 to the IRS. On this check, who is the purchaser of the cashier's check?
I was the purchaser,
And who is the remitter?
Courtney Clenny.
And why did you make Courtney the remitter?
It was her funds.
Let's talk about the next big expense.
Okay. The next big expense, she wanted to move home, put down roots again, be close to us again. So she decided to buy a house.
Okay.
Right.
And this house is located close to you?
She had a contract in another side of town, and then another house came available closer to us. And so then she put it off on the house.
And how much was the purchase price of the home?
And the purchase price was $1.35 million.
And what was the amount that was paid into as far as closing costs and escrow? Yeah, please.
I know the number, but the first check on May 17th was for $21,000, and that was $20,000 escrow for their first house and a $1,000 non-refundable option fee. Then and I was the purchaser, but she was the remitter, and there's copies of cashier's checks. I know that to be accurate. The second cashier's check was for $10,000 additional when she put the offer on the new house, and so the $20,000 for the first house was transferred over, so she had $30,000 escrow. The $10,000 was a cashier's check purchase on May 24th of this year. Again, she was the remitter, and I was the purchaser.
Okay. And how much was paid into the home?
At closing, again, I went to Wells Fargo and got a cashier's check on dated June 16th. It was for $356,226.45. Again, I was the purchaser and she was the remitter.
And Judge, at this time, I would refer the court to Defendant's Exhibit N, which are two checks, one for $21,000 and one for $10,000, and a additional exhibit for cashier's check in the amount of $356,000.
Okay, you know what I wonder? I wonder if they did that on purpose. If they did that after meeting with the CPA, I wonder if they did that on purpose to protect that money so that it wouldn't get taken away from them. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the laws are in Texas when it comes to that, but I just kind of was thinking maybe there's some kind of protection there so it can't be taken away from her at this point in time by the courts, by anybody. I don't know. Thoughts? Anyone have thoughts on that?
$226.45. Let me ask you this. What makes you qualified to handle the finances of Courtney?
I have a finance degree and I spent 15 years as an investment advisor.
Now, you said this account was yours. You didn't use it much, but did you mix your money with Courtney's money?
It was in the same account that I segregated on the ledger that I kept. I would print out the bank statements each month. And if there was anything that came out like a bank draft for my purposes, I would true it up. So her money was always what it should be.
And how did you distinguish her money when you say true up? How did you distinguish her money from your money?
I would go in and add each month if there were any, there was a loan payment that came out of that account.
I'm sorry.
There was a loan payment for me that came out of that account. And so at the end of the month, I would make sure what was attributable to me, I added up, and then I would either add back in to her money or I would have to deduct it if she owed me anything.
Were there any costs associated with Courtney moving from Miami back home to Texas?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
No, run this again.
Yes.
there were two major expenditures, but there were multiple expenditures in those two areas. The first was moving out of the condo, the liquidated rent, cleaning, painting, things like that for the condo, attorney's fees. That was $26,885. And then there was reimbursement.
I'm sorry, can you say the exact amount again?
$26,885. And then there was reimbursement to me for hotels and travel as far as, movers, rental for truck, things like that. That was $30,074.
Now, did a large portion of the funds belonging to Courtney go to her defense of this case?
Yes.
She also went to rehab at some point?
Yes.
And how much was that?
The airfare and the rehab itself totaled $35,497.
Now, I'm sure that's not all the expenditures. Can you just give a general description of some of the other items?
There was $15,702 that went to some mortgage payments for the new house. There was, then she bought some assorted furniture, $12,072. And then there were some significant veterinarian bills, and that was $5,008. And beyond that, then you have the normal living expenses, daily living expenses, and then normal household expenses, electricity, utilities, things like that.
Now, at some point, a second Wells Fargo account was opened. It's ending in 4557. Can you explain what the purpose of opening that account was for?
Yes. So when Courtney was going to go to Hawaii for rehab, and so she was using my wife's debit card. So if we went to go get expenses for her that were related strictly for her, we would use the debit card related to that account, so we were using her money. When she went to Hawaii, she was concerned if she lost the debit card or somebody took it, she was concerned about the bulk of her money being in the first Wells Fargo account. So she asked me, Dad, can you transfer it? Well, I didn't really want to transfer it to another one of my accounts. So I opened a Prime account at Wells Fargo and transferred the bulk of the money over there. And that way, if she needed it, I could transfer it back in, which I subsequently did.
Now, was that Prime account, though, in Courtney's name or in your name?
It was in my name only.
Was any of the money in that Prime account belong to you?
No, it was a brand new account. I never put any money in there.
And what is the balance in that second account, the 4557 account, as of today?
The Prime account, $0.
And how do you know it's zero? When's the last time you checked the balance?
Yesterday.
And what is the balance in the 4926 account? That's the other Wells Fargo
I have
account.
to look at my note. It is, and this is as of yesterday, $126.65.
Okay. And so adding that to the two Bank of America account balances that Courtney has, it appears to be $11,405.20 total.
That sounds correct.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge of any other assets that Courtney has, such as stocks or bonds, other homes, boats, cars?
She has nothing other than the house.
And obviously she has equity in that home. She just purchased it.
Correct.
How much equity, if you have an estimate?
$350,000 to $375,000.
So as far as cash value, to your knowledge, Courtney has $11,400.
That's correct.
Okay. May I have a moment, Judge? I have nothing further. Pass it away.
Okay, who's keeping track of the numbers? Because I lost track because I got a text message. Erase this after you read it, please. What do you want me to do? Take it down? Delete the comment? Okay, I'll delete the comment. Delete that comment from JD Jenny, Bama. I don't know who that is. I wrote it down though, okay?
Good afternoon.
Well,
So you've told us that you are Miss Clancy's father.
that's
right?
correct.
And obviously you have a very familial relationship with her. You don't want to see anything bad happen to her.
That's correct.
You would do anything for her as well as look over her finances, but if it came to it, you would lie for her.
No, I would not. I resent that accusation.
It's not an accusation.
It is an accusation.
I'm not trying to. But my question to you is, if it came to it, would you lie for your daughter?
No,
Okay. And in regards to her working situation, you know that she worked for OnlyFans.
I didn't know that for quite a while.
You know that now.
I did.
You know that because you're in charge of her finances.
Correct.
Really quick, you guys, I just want to tell you this stream, that we're watching from Law and Crime. This is the only one I could find that had this hearing, and it's not really great. The video is horrible, but at least the audio, we can hear it. So I do apologize for that. Just wanted to remind you all.
And you actually just said that you were talking about the first charge, the first expenditure. You did her taxes for her.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do the taxes. The CPA did the taxes.
You collected the documents to give to him.
Correct.
Okay. So in regards to OnlyFans, that's something that can be done online.
Yes.
And that's a job that can be, if you have any internet access, it can be completed from that internet access.
That would be true if it wasn't canceled by OnlyFans.
Well, my question to you though is, as a result of how the company actually works, if you have an internet connection, you could theoretically use it.
I don't know how the company works. I just know that they are on the internet. That's all I know about OnlyFans.
You know that her videos are online?
I do.
Okay. She's not working now, obviously.
That's correct.
But if she got out, there's nothing stopping her from trying to continue to work for OnlyFans.
They've canceled her account.
Correct. Right now. But nothing stops her from trying to reestablish that.
Well, I was told by her manager they weren't going to open her account.
Yeah, I
want
mean,
to talk to you about the
that is kind of dumb of the prosecutor to push that point because, hello, she's under, the whole reason they canceled is because she's been suspected of a crime here. She's incarcerated. Of course they're going to take her down and they're not going to put her back up. So that was kind of dumb of him.
transfers themselves, but I want to start with there's a letter that's in evidence that you wrote to the complex that she was living at down here in Miami.
Right.
That's dated, I believe, April 28th.
Probably.
Was Courtney already out of Miami by that time?
Yes.
Do you know when she had moved back to, I'm suggesting now, but you tell me, did she move back to Texas?
Yes.
She moved in with you.
Yes.
And prior to her going to the rehab center in Hawaii, she was living with you.
Yes.
In regards to those transfers that were done, first, the two that were done on April 12th and two separate transfers, and then on May 3rd, did she do those transfers herself?
No, I didn't.
You did them for her.
Yes.
Did she know that you were doing them?
Yes, she did.
And you told us already that you have a finance degree and you were working 15 years as an investment advisor, right?
Correct.
So you know the importance of keeping accurate records.
I did.
You also know the importance of, in wires, labeling what the purpose of them are for. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think I labeled them.
You don't think you labeled them?
I don't recall labeling them.
If I showed you the transfers, would it refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
Oh, that guy y'all are talking about, is he he helped families find missing people, but he wasn't legit or something? I remember watching something about that.
These transfers. Are you able to see what they are labeled under the section origin to BENEINSTR?
Repayment of loans.
And so you see that you've labeled all three of them repayment of loan.
It was an error.
So, sir, you say it's an error, but now you've also told us that it's important to keep accurate documents. Is that right?
Correct.
So now what you've told us today is, the purpose of this was for you to be in charge of her finances.
Correct.
However, back on that day, you labeled those wires repayment of loans.
Well, some of them were going to be all total repayment of loans, but then she needed money.
That doesn't answer my question, sir. You've labeled them two different things, one different here, one different on the day you made the transfers.
Right.
Are you lying then or are you lying now?
I'm not lying. It was an error on my part.
And now I want to talk to you about the defendant in her time and living with you. So during her teen years, did she live with you?
Yes.
Were there any incidents where either she was a danger to herself or to your family?
No.
Is there anything, so do you have any memory of any instance of you being called out to a scene?
Judge, objection, this is beyond the scope.
Phase two.
Maybe this I've already
This takes a minute. Hang on. I bet she's not a bad prisoner, you know, if you think about it. She probably doesn't cause any problems. She was spoiled. Yeah, she was spoiled rotten. She had
So, Mr. Clenny, if given the
everything handed to her.
opportunity that your daughter is released, would she come back to live with you?
That's an option, yes.
And do you find her to be a danger to you?
Absolutely not.
Do you find her to be a danger to your daughter, your other daughter,
No.
or your
No.
wife?
No.
And are there any situations that you've had between, or that you've seen, that you've observed or been privy to between Ms. Clenny and your wife and your other daughter?
I think, well, no, because I think there may have been an incident that I wasn't there. So
Did you eventually learn of what happened?
I think the sheriff's office may have been called, but she wasn't a danger to those two people.
Do you know why nothing was done further?
Judge, I'm going to object.
Now, you've been in the courtroom for at least the first day of this hearing, right?
Correct.
So you've seen or at least heard a lot of the state's allegations against your daughter. And I'm sorry?
Quite a few, yes.
And in regards to the timeline that the state has presented as to a number of these allegations, do you still feel comfortable that you can control her if she was left in, I guess, your custody or in your control?
Can you specify which allegations? Or
Sure.
just in general?
Yes, Judge, if I could have one moment.
I want to know how much they spend on attorneys. Can they disclose that? Can they require them to disclose that?
Judge, I'm going to object beyond the scope of direct.
Okay, that. All right, I'm gonna pull up right now, let's see before we do this.
So, Mr. Klein, in regards to the July 27th of 2021 incident in Vegas, you heard about that yesterday,
Not yesterday, the day before.
the day before. And then the text messages from October 9th through the 11th discussing your daughter stabbing the victim in the leg and then
I
hitting him in the...
don't think I know that to be true.
Well, whether you know it to be true, you were in the court and heard it.
I did hear it, yes.
And then also in January 30th through February 1st, the state's allegations that your daughter caused this injury to the victim, slicing him to the
I
face.
did hear it. I did hear that.
And then the February 21st incident in the elevator.
Well, it's obviously she's under duress. We don't know what happened before or after.
My question to you is, you heard about it yesterday.
I heard about it the day before yesterday.
The day before yesterday. And then in regards to March, the multiple conversations between your daughter and the defendant, where she calls him a number of different names. You heard about that yesterday.
I did hear about that, but I don't know in what context.
Certainly, I'm not asking you that. So, and then obviously the incident that took place, the date of the incident, when the defendant killed the victim. You heard about that 2 days ago.
Well, when the defendant acted in self-defense, I heard about that, yes.
So after hearing those incidents that the state has brought to your attention in the last 2 days, you still feel comfortable allowing her to come home to your house and you believe you can control her?
1,000%. No doubt.
One moment, Your Honor. Judge, I have no further questions. I would just move in those two documents.
Thank you.
He looked at her like, I got you, baby. It's okay, darling.
Mr. Clenny, are you aware of any banking regulations that say that you must in the memo line put exactly what a transfer is for?
I'm not aware of any.
And you testified that it was an error by putting in the memo line that it was a payment of a loan?
Right. So the if I put that in there, there was a sizable loan to Courtney, and that would have been the payment. But one of those wouldn't have covered that. So that's why I've been on the larger. If I'd had any notes to that, that's why that would have been put there. But I don't recall that.
The money that was transferred into that account from Courtney, whose money does that belong to?
That's Courtney's money, and I've spent it all on her behalf.
And did you do it with her permission?
Yes.
Now, the state attorney said, you've been sitting here in this courtroom on the other day, you've heard all these allegations that were made, and he asked you if you feel comfortable having Courtney come home with you. Is that right?
I did,
And why do you feel comfortable?
because I lived with her a number of years growing up, and she was there 2 to 3 months with us this year. So I have no doubt that there wasn't any problems. I have no concern about that.
And did you have knowledge of the true relationship between Courtney and Abunselli?
Oh, yes.
And what was that?
Objection, Judge, as to relevance.
He opened the door, Judge.
Yes. It was it was very toxic. And I knew from the beginning that he was not treating her correctly. I even saw proof with my own eyes. I heard calls between them, calls to my wife. I heard many things that father who loves his daughter very deeply should never have to put up with. So if she didn't deserve what she put up with.
Oh, okay. So that's why you went straight over there to Miami and made it all stop, right, Daddy? Right? Or were you working? Were you working, Daddy? Is that what it was? You couldn't get over there? You guys? Are you feeling here? Are you feeling this with me, guys? I mean, I'm sorry, but mm-mm. Mm-mm. They're victim blaming.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Judge, I would just ask that those two documents, if we have a ruling as to, at least for purposes of impeachment at this point.
Well, they won't. Evidence is that the impeachment is going to be evidence, but, you have actually the documents.
May I ask which documents, Your Honor?
Yes, Judge.
And
for the record,
and
would
that
be
just
states 1L
reinforces,
for
you
identification
guys,
purposes, as well as states
exactly what they've
1K
done
for
with her in the
identification
past. If she's committed a wrong, they've been right there to pull her out and pick her up and tell her that it's not her fault, that it's probably someone else's to blame. Like, I bet you money, you guys, if she got in trouble in the past, it was because of they always said it was because she was hanging out with the wrong crowd. Or maybe it was an ex-boyfriend she shouldn't have been dating. You know what I mean? Like, it's all that. That's what I feel like. She's been coddled. She's been put up on a pedestal her whole life. I wonder, she's not involved in this, but I wonder what her little sister's like. Okay, now we're going to go over and watch the medical examiner. Daddy is so ridiculous, Mel. I'm not even. What's up, Dread? Has he seen the video of her losing it? I'm sure he has, but he would probably deny it. Or he would say, well, there was a reason why she did it. She was pushed to that point. You know, and the sad part about it is that this is so cliche because I knew kids in high school and even in my early 20s where their parents thought they would never do wrong. Like, you know, I always felt like they thought I was a bad kid or something, you know. I have never been around, like, there were a couple of friends that I had that their parents were so ridiculous that I was like, I felt like they thought I was like a black sheep of my family or something. It was so weird. But there's families that do this. It's just wrong. It's so wrong. Okay, so my next question is, she spent $356,000 on a house. We'll throw in some change there for additional expenses. So that's $500K of the 1,000,000, what did I say? 1,800 and no, I'm sorry, $1,183,000. So there should still be over almost $7,000 in her account. Where's it at? Is that all attorney's fees? You guys, how much you think her attorneys are going to cost her in the end? I have no idea. You say $500 an hour? What are we talking here? I just wonder. I don't know. I don't know how to calculate all that. And don't make me math. I'm not a mather.
No, they're not going to come in. 1L will become 311.
All right, now we got the medical examiner. This is interesting, and we're going to look into some more of this. We're going to stop this and talk about some other stuff while he's here on the stand.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Kenneth Hutchins. I'm the Chief Medical Examiner for the Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner Department.
And just for the record, are we able to hear him?
Yeah, hello.
So, Dr. Hutchins, where are you currently employed and what is your current position?
I'm employed by the Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner Department, and I'm currently the Chief Medical Examiner.
And how long have you been working there?
About 21 years,
And how long have you been the chief medical examiner?
a little over 1 year.
And so were you in that position at the time of this case coming in?
Yes,
Now, is this your office Is it an accredited office?
Yes.
And what does it mean to be an accredited medical examiner's office?
It means that we have standards that we meet for the National Association of Medical Examiners.
And could you please explain to the court some of your background in becoming a medical examiner?
I received my BA in biology from Swarthmore College, my MD from the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. I did a pathology residency and neuropathology fellowship at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York.
Oh, you know what, Lenny, you just made me think about something. You said maybe she has a wealthy sugar daddy. I bet you money, you guys. I bet that all these guys that were on like fans of hers of her OnlyFans page, you know how sickening that can get, right? I bet some of them actually send her money all the time in her commissary and stuff. What you want to bet? What you want to bet? I bet she's fine. I bet she's just fine in jail.
I did my forensic pathology fellowship and training at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Baltimore.
Yes, Your Honor, we shall stipulate.
So I'm going to bring you and your focus to this matter, to this case. And so the case, were you assigned to ME case number 2022-1069?
Yes.
And how exactly do you go about the process of being assigned a case?
I was likely scheduled to be in the autopsy room that day, and it was a case that I ended up doing.
And in regards to this matter on April 4th, did you come into contact of the body of Mr. Ambunseli?
Yes.
Approach, I'm showing you what's in evidence that states Exhibit 2. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
It's hot.
And who is that?
That's the decedent Mr. Christian Amboseli.
You don't mind, can you please publish it to the court? Judge, if you don't mind, if you could just keep that up there. Thank you.
Yeah, I still have this on 1.25 speed.
One moment, Your Honor, I apologize. And just for the record, Judge, I'm showing defense the photographs. Now, Dr. Hutchins, when you were observing the body, were there any evidence of medical intervention?
Yes.
And what exactly was that?
I'd have to review the medical examiner report to let you know.
If you don't mind just taking a moment.
He had a lot of medical intervention, including an endotracheal tube protruding from his mouth, a catheter in his left groin, vascular catheter, a urinary catheter from his urethra, a 21 centimeter transversely oriented sutured left thoracotomy incision. The pericardial sac was open. The sac around the heart was open. There was 200 milliliters of blood in the left chest cavity. There's a chest tube protruding from the right chest. And he had multiple needle puncture marks on the upper aspect of the left chest associated with some subcutaneous hemorrhage.
Okay, I want to make a comment here because, yes, I am commenting a lot tonight. I'm commenting a lot tonight, you guys. Thought about all that work that they did on him. He apparently was still alive then when they had him at the apartment. I remember the lead detective, when he got on, he said something to the effect that he knew that Christian didn't make it, like even when they were still at the apartment. And I thought, how could that be? Anyway, I don't think all that stuff that he just described could have been done just in the ambulance. So I think that there was still a possibility for him maybe once he got to the hospital, which does surprise me because the way that I was thinking, or they made it sound before, was that he didn't even make it in the ambulance, you know?
And now in regards to the wound itself, was it a singular wound?
Yes.
Now I'm showing you States Exhibit 3 and States Exhibit, I believe, 9. No, it's not going to be 9. States Exhibit 3 and States Exhibit 4. First, States Exhibit 3. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is this a photograph of?
This is a photograph of the sutured wound in the upper left chest.
Is it the same condition that you saw that day?
Yes.
We publish it to the court. Now, at some point in time, did you remove the sutures?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that?
To get a better idea of what the wound looked like.
I'm showing you States Exhibit 4. I'm taking a look at that. Is that how the wound looked after you removed the sutures?
Yes.
You could also publish that to the court. I'm also going to show you State's Exhibit 6 as well as State's Exhibit 5. Is this a closer, and that's State's Exhibit 5, is that a closer image of that wound?
Yes.
And how exactly would you describe the wound?
It's a sharp force injury wound that has nice, clean, sharp margins. It's extended open. It was 4.4 centimeters in length with the sutures in it. And when the sutures are removed, it's 4 by 1.5 centimeters. There's a lot of hemorrhage beneath it, and there's no contusion or abrasion around it. So that suggests that it's a sharp force injury and not some other type of injury.
And is it consistent with what you would see with a knife injury?
Yes.
You could also publish 5 and 6 to the court.
Beatrice said something earlier and I was going to comment, and now I can't find your comment.
Now, something that I do believe may come up by defense, are you a knife throwing expert?
No, I'm not.
Are you an expert of someone or what knives would do to people?
Yes, I am.
So in regards to the wound itself, what type of injury did that knife wound lead to?
It went down into the soft tissue, went through the muscle, and injured the right subclavian artery.
Like the worst place he could have been hit.
Now,
One of the
State's
worst.
Exhibit 9. You recognize it?
Yes.
And what does this photograph show?
This photograph shows after the skin is removed from the where the injury is, the hemorrhage around the injury, and the injury in the right subclavian artery.
If you don't mind me, I'm going to hold it up for you. If you can point exactly to where the injury is for the court.
The artery is here, and the injury is right here in the artery.
You can publish this to the court. And now I'm showing you State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is this?
This is a picture of the artery after I removed it from the body.
And I'm going to hold it up. If you could please explain to the court exactly what you can see from this photograph.
This is the inside of the artery after it's open, and there's a lot of hemorrhage around the injury in the artery.
What does that mean?
Thank you.
He bled out. And just so you guys know, I don't think they get too graphic here.
Dr.
I
Hutchins,
hope
if you could
not.
explain, was this a stab wound or an incision wound?
A stab wound.
And what are the differences?
Well, in general, an incise wound is longer on the skin than it goes into the body. A stab wound is measured shorter on the outside of the skin than it goes into the body.
And in regards to this wound specifically being a stab wound, how far into the body did it go?
Approximately 8 centimeters.
3 inches.
Now, when we talk about 8 centimeters, is that more than 3 inches?
Around that.
Can you explain to the court exactly what occurs when someone is stabbed in, say, specifically the subclavian artery?
Bleeding.
How do you stop the bleeding?
You'd have to go to a hospital, and they would stop the bleeding. I don't really treat live people, so I can't be more specific than that, but you go to the hospital and they will treat you.
And so the importance is, and if you're not able to stop it though, would you bleed out?
Yes.
And would you continue to bleed?
Yes.
Can you die if you're not treated medically?
Yes.
Now, could you explain exactly the location of the wound?
The wound is on the right side of the chest, 13 inches below the top of the head and 6 inches to the right of the midline of the front of the body.
And now this wound specifically, did it have to penetrate muscle?
Yes.
And how much force specifically would be needed to say, breaking the skin for a wound like this?
Well, people have done experiments to see how much force it takes for a knife to go into different parts of the body.
Oh gosh, here we go. Laura, okay, just really quickly. Laura says, from the little bit I can find out right now, it looks like her attorney runs roughly $420 an hour, and that's just for him, not the other one as well. That's a good point. And it's not just them. You're talking about those other 2 women that are there. What would you call them? Paralegals? They were a little bit older than Sarah Boone's paralegals. No, those women have knowledge, the ones that were sitting next to her the other day that were sitting with Courtney. So I don't know. Hey, Route Irish, I'm glad you're back in. Will she get manslaughter? No, they've got her. I don't think so. They're trying her for 2nd degree murder. Red rum. Sorry, but I said that word.
If the point of the knife is sharp, it takes between 8 to 12 pounds to get through the skin.
And now we had talked already about the sutures. Do the sutures, the fact that they added sutures to this wound, did that do anything to change the depth of this wound?
I honestly don't know what they did with this wound. If all they did was suture it, it would not change the depth of the wound, no.
And now this trajectory, in regards to the trajectory of this wound specifically, what is the trajectory?
It's front to back and slightly downward.
Is that consistent with the knife coming downwards?
Yes,
Now, there's a couple of other items I want to talk to you about that's a part of your report. Toxicology specifically that was done on the victim. Were there any substances present?
yes.
What was present?
Cannabinoids.
Would that have any effect on the stab wound?
No.
In regards to, I think you also wrote in there something about cardiomegaly. Could you
Yeah.
explain exactly about what that is at?
It's an enlarged heart. His heart was 470 grams, I believe. So it's an enlarged heart, but he was a big guy. And if you're a person that exercises a lot, you stimulate your heart and it can become large.
And would that have anything to do with this stab wound?
No.
Other than that, is the victim in good health?
Yes.
Now, what information were you provided in this case?
I was provided information from our investigations report, and we have a preliminary death investigation report for the medical examiner from the police as well.
If you don't mind informing the court, what information did you have in regards to how the victim received this wound?
I'd have to read the report.
Your Honor, do you have any issue if you read from the report?
He's all business, Bernice. I like him though.
Dr. Hutchins, you can read from the report if you'd like.
Okay, it's a very long report, but I'll just say, it says, the offender in fear for her life warned the victim to stay away. The victim approached in an aggressive manner. The offender threw the knife and struck the victim on the top right chest area. The offender then called police and attempted to add pressure to the wound.
Based on that information, I want to pose to you a couple of hypotheticals, but the first and the last thing I want to show, Exhibit 8. If you could explain to the court exactly what this is showing.
I put probes in the artery and the vein. The probe came out of the artery. The probe went through the vein, so the vein was intact.
Is that to show also the trajectory of the wound?
No, this doesn't show the trajectory of the wound. The wound is going downward and from front to back. I have these just going in the arteries. They're going laterally from left to right.
He knows his stuff, doesn't he? He's like on top of everything. I like that.
So going back to these hypotheticals, based on the information that you had in your observations, the position of the wound, the angle of the wound, the depth of the wound, does that support that the victim and the defendant were face to face when this happened?
As a hypothetical?
As a hypothetical.
Yes.
And as another hypothetical, based on the same position, observations, the angle, the depth, does it support that the victim was stabbed?
Yes.
Based on the same observations, does it support that at least 8 to 12 pounds of force would have been used in order to create that damage?
In general, yes.
And that damage being breaking through the skin, plunging the knife 3 inches into the victim's chest, and cutting through muscle, eventually the subclavian artery.
Yes.
Now, based on the information you received that the defendant was alleged to have thrown this knife, do your observations support that?
I'm not an expert in knife throwing. If the person who supposedly did this is an expert knife thrower, and the knife is the type of knife that you can throw, I guess that could have happened.
Did you receive any information that the defendant was a knife thrower?
No.
So based on that fact that you did not receive that information, would it support that?
No.
And what would you expect to see a knife do if someone just flung it at somebody?
Threw it the way a knife thrower throws it?
No, someone
Just-
that's not a knife thrower.
It would just hit the body and bounce off.
Now, as a result of this case, did you come to a cause, or did you make a determination as to the cause and manner of death?
Yes.
Could you please explain this to the court?
The cause of death was stab wound of right subclavian artery. The manner of death was homicide.
All right, I have no further questions.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Afternoon.
It is a soft area, yeah.
Around what time did you receive the body for you to be able to perform your autopsy in this case?
I performed the autopsy at 9:30 a.m. I'm not sure when the body came to our office. I'd have to look through the paperwork to see.
That's okay. At 9:30 a.m. on April 4th,
Yes.
2022?
Yes.
And you understand that this incident took place on April 3rd, the day before?
Yes.
Okay, so the very next morning, you were already performing your autopsy.
Correct.
And prior to conducting your autopsy, you first read and review that preliminary police death investigation report for the medical examiner?
If we have it, I do. Yes.
Okay, and it's fair to say that you might not always have that, right?
Correct.
And that's because you have to wait to receive it from the detective in a case?
Yes.
So having that or not having that, that doesn't really affect your ability to get started on doing your autopsy.
Not to get started, that's correct.
Do you know if in this case you had that report before you were able to start? Do you remember?
I don't have any independent
That's
recollection.
all right. So you start your autopsy at 9:30. And before we get to exactly what you performed, well, let me just say this. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into all that you do, right? It's not
Yes.
just all your examination.
Yes,
There is a release of the body, eventually an authorization for that, right?
yes,
There are case notes that you do.
yes,
There's a forensic evidence form,
yes,
a death record, medical information sheet,
yes,
a microscopic report.
yes,
So lots of paperwork.
yes.
All right. First, before we go into what you actually performed, I want to go over this preliminary police death investigation report that you eventually received. And this is, fair to say, a tool to help you put some context to the situation. Is that fair to say?
Sometimes, yes.
Because you clearly, obviously, you are not present for what happens that makes you receive the body, right?
Yes, that's correct.
In any case, not just this case.
That's correct.
So you have the autopsy you perform, but having some of the information, some of the background can be useful to you in making your final opinion. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And what you learned from this report was that, according to what it says, that Ms. Clenny said she was arguing with the decedent, Abumseli, when he grabbed her by the neck and slammed her onto the wall. Is that right?
yes,
She then said that he grabbed her, threw her on the ground, and held her down by the neck with both hands.
yes,
Then, in fear for her life, she warned him to stay away. Is that right?
I don't have that in this report that I'm looking at, the police report.
If you look at the last paragraph, it says the offender in fear for
Yes,
her
I
life.
see it now. You're correct.
The victim approached in an aggressive manner. Is that right?
Yes,
And that is important information for you, right? Whether the person was stationary or moving could make a difference to you. Is that right?
it could, yes.
Okay. And we'll get more into that in a bit. But according to the report, the offender threw the knife and struck the decedent in the top right chest area. Is that right?
Yes,
And it also said that she called police and attempted to put pressure on the wound, right?
yes,
And putting pressure on a wound could also make a difference as far as blood loss, right?
yes, it could.
And we'll talk about that in a few moments. Now, your opinion was that this was homicide, and you put that in various portions of your reports. Is that right?
Yes,
You would agree with me that a homicide could be justified, right?
yes.
Now, what happens in a situation if after your report or your autopsy, you determine that you do believe it was in self-defense? Is there a way that you document that on your reports?
That's a legal thing. We don't have anything to do with that.
Okay, so even if you felt it was justified, you wouldn't write down homicide justified.
Correct,
You would just write homicide no matter what.
correct.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the social history. These are in the case notes, and I understand there was a Carlos Marmolejo that took the case notes. Is that somebody that works for your office, sir?
Yes, it is. He's a medical legal death investigator.
Okay, perfect. And that is somebody who will sometimes be in contact with the families?
Yes,
And in this case, they spoke with, according to the case notes, the aunt of Abumseli in order to get some information. Is that right?
yes,
And some of that information.
Remember, you guys, one thing that we talked about really early on, his family found out that he had passed away because somebody from the medical examiner's office called to ask about his organ donation. Her voice annoys me. Oh gosh, Bernice. It's going to be a long road for you, Bernice, if that's the case.
Information could be useful to you, obviously, whether the person is healthy or not healthy, has a medical history, illnesses, that sort of thing, right?
yes,
And one of the things that your office was advised was that he did not drink, smoke, or use illegal drugs. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
But in fact, when the toxicology came out, it was detected that he tested positive for marijuana. Is that correct?
Yes,
And I know that you're not the toxicologist that performed it, but as the chief medical examiner, you do review that toxicology and you sign off. Is that right?
correct.
Okay, did y'all catch that? He tested positive for marijuana. Now, don't you think that if he had anything stronger in his blood, that she would have been on top of that right there? Yeah, Barry. So apparently the police never called his family, and it had something to do with the fact that they weren't sure of who he was. He didn't have any ID on him. I don't know how it was that difficult. I believe it was the fact that remember Courtney, when she was being interrogated, she had to basically look at a photo of him and identify him. So yeah, that's pretty bad. It was not handled the greatest. Oh.
Let's talk about the estimation on time of death. Is it fair to say that you cannot with certainty state when the stab wound occurred in this case?
That's correct.
And obviously, one, you've already said you weren't present, right?
Yes.
But it's also very difficult because there are many variables that go into that. Is that right?
Yes, that's true.
So, for example, as somebody is losing a lot of blood, it will have different physical effects on a person's body, correct?
Yes.
So in this case, the subclavian artery was hit. That is something that's going to lose a lot of blood, right?
Yes.
And so when a person is losing a lot of blood, the various physical effects they may feel could be chills, right? They get cold.
They could. Yes.
Loss of feeling in their limbs.
Yes.
They might have problems speaking.
As they start to go into shock, maybe. Yes.
And then lose consciousness.
Yes.
And the rate of loss of blood can be affected by, for example, how big the person, their body type, right?
It could be. Yes.
What about if pressure was placed on the wound versus not placed on the wound?
Yes, that could affect the amount of blood that is lost.
And the usual progression of blood loss will be that the person might be speaking, then move to nonsensical speaking, and kind of just making kind of noises until they lose consciousness. Is that right?
That could be something that could occur. Yes.
Now, did you listen to the 911 call in this case?
No.
Okay, are you aware that Mr. Abumseli, first of all, 911 was called at 4:58 p.m. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay, and were you told by anybody that when 911 was called, he could be heard saying, "I can't feel my arms"?
No.
Okay.
Does that have
If
to do
you
anything?
heard though, or you understood that information, that would appear that he wasn't at the point where he was at unconsciousness yet, correct?
That's correct.
They treated him like a criminal.
Now,
My computer's
in
acting
this
up.
case, you did receive information that time of death was called at 5:58 p.m. Is that right?
I have it at 5:55 p.m.
You're correct. I apologize. 5:55 p.m.
Yes.
That the 911 was called at 4:58, and approximately 1 hour later is when time of death was called. Is that right?
Yes.
I'd like to look to your autopsy protocol and dictation. This is really the substance of your examination, right? Your report?
Yes.
And the first thing you do is you conduct an external examination of the body.
Yes.
And I understand here you would put no fractures, lacerations, or deformities of the extremities. But let me ask you this. Can you explain what the difference between a stab wound and a laceration is?
A laceration is a tear in the skin from a blunt force injury. So a blunt object hits the skin, it tears the skin. So when you look at the injury, there might be an abrasion or contusion around it because the skin was struck by a blunt object. It tears the skin, so you have tissue bridging going from one part of the skin to the other. These are small vessels that don't get torn when the blunt object strikes the skin. A sharp force injury cuts the skin. You don't get abrasion or contusion around it, and you don't have tissue bridging because those little vessels are cut.
Okay, so that's the difference of why you wouldn't call the stab wound to the chest a laceration?
Correct.
Okay. You did notice, though, that there was a healing scar surrounded by smaller healing scars on the right heel. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And the heel is considered the foot?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't notice any healing scars on legs, did you?
Legs, no.
And you didn't notice any lacerations on the legs. Is that right?
That's correct.
If you had, you would have documented, right? That's what this portion of your report is for?
Yes.
Now, the internal examination, I am sorry, I didn't understand half of what you said of all the things you did. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but there's a
Oh, really? I didn't understand half the things you said. Come on, woman. Okay, wait. I want to go over here now. I want you guys to listen to what Court TV said about this situation. And we're going to talk. Oh, Route Irish, thank you so much. You're so nice. I appreciate that. Lisa Smith, Cindy Norton, Dread, Gracie, Sierra Maid, Angel, all got gifts. Oh, Annabelle and Cindy G and Tiff Turtle all got memberships from Route Irish. That was so sweet of you. Thank you, honey. All right, let's watch what they say on Court TV.
Let's talk about how that knife could possibly end up in his chest. Does this story that she's telling investigators, make any sense to you based upon what we learned from the autopsy?
No, it doesn't whatsoever. And keep in mind the forensic pathologist that you guys had up on the stand in that pretrial motion or hearing, he's talking about a downward angle of this knife. So downward means that she would have been in a dominant position relative to him if she was even capable of throwing this knife and exerting enough velocity and at the proper release point. This knife that you guys have done a great job. Production always does a great job with Court TV, by the way. This knife is actually a kitchen knife. This is not a throwing knife, which has a certain balance to it. People that throw knives know this. And so I think she's kind of reaching for something here, if you will. This knife actually clips the subclavicular artery. And if folks at home will find your collarbone right here, your clavicle, okay? There's a major artery that runs right beneath here. And I don't know if you recall, Vin, you could hear him, I think, on a 9/11 call. I have a memory of this where he's kind of drifting off. And I can tell you this, though we see a lot of blood at the scene, he would have had probably a chest full of blood as well. He would have literally been drowning internally within his chest. And it's a slow death. And you can hear him kind of gradually fading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you guys having, is it messing up? What's all over the place? Oh, you're talking about that. Okay. Is the screen okay? Is it just Barry that's having issues? I just want to make sure.
Out, losing consciousness.
How much force does it take? And again, the knife punctured the artery in his right chest. The knife entered in a downward angle to the depth of 8 centimeters.
Yeah. So it's going to take quite a bit of energy in order to do this. And you have to think about, and if folks at home will just envision holding a knife, and if you're in a defensive position, for somebody that's not trained with knives, you might grip it so that the blade is running in this direction and you're stabbing. Just think of the old movie Psycho. And so you're stabbing like this. This gives you a downward trajectory. Even though in the image that you see of the two of them side by side, he's dominant. And even in the image in the elevator, in that moving image, he's significantly taller than her, and she's reaching up to punch him and to hit him and that sort of thing. Even in that motion like that, when she swings at him, you can see that is kind of demonstrative of a downward strike. So if she's holding a knife and she goes in like this, then she can do quite a bit of damage holding the knife. Not throwing the knife, though. It's going to be superficial at best. And certainly for somebody that might have her strength in order, or lack of strength in order to be able to facilitate this. He's a big guy, Vin, and he's very thick through the chest too. She would have come at him in a rage. As investigators, we look for what are referred to as weapons of opportunity, those things that are at your fingertips. It's not like she would have been walking around with a serrated kitchen blade in her hand. she essentially grabs this thing from the shelf, or maybe it's in a knife block, who knows, and begins to wield this thing. And as she's striking at him, we can see her throwing hands, as folks say, in these moving images that are there. All you got to do is put a knife in her hand, and that will get the job done.
Are you surprised that they weren't able to save him here?
No, he would have had to have been at an emergency room. They would have had to have opened his chest and gone in and tied that vessel off. It's one of the most lethal areas, other than perhaps and I'm talking about the viscera of the chest, other than maybe a strike to the aorta or the pulmonary artery, hitting the subclave. You're in a real dangerous area there, Ben.
I just thought that was really interesting what that guy said. And you guys, you think about it. We know she has anger issues, obviously. We've seen that from the videos that we've seen before of her. She admits it in some of the videos. And I was just thinking, like, what it took for her. Now we think we know she was drinking, because remember, we've got the live stream that she did on Instagram that shows she had been drinking. And I don't know how. We talked about this in the Sarah Boone case, when you're an alcoholic and you get that torn up. Like, I don't know how much it takes for you to get to the point to where you're doing something that you are completely blitzed out of your mind. But to literally, it's one thing to throw a punch at somebody. And if you think about it, someone you love, if you had to throw a punch at them, if you wouldn't do it. I mean, you just wouldn't do it. But then to grab a weapon and to hurt them with a weapon, that is a whole nother level. And I just feel like, I don't care if she threw it or she stabbed him or whatever it was. We're talking, this girl is unhinged. And the intent is there. And I think at the end of the day, with all these videos and everything they've got, there's no way a jury, just like with Sarah Boone's videos, which we still want to hear from a juror, right? But we know for a fact that those videos did it for the jurors. That was enough. That was all she wrote. And I just think that what's going to happen is they're going to come in, they're going to start the trial, and then they're going to start showing these previous videos of them fighting, and the jurors are going to start moving around their chairs going, okay, well, we got this now. We can, just can we go ahead and fill out this form and go home? Because we know what's going on here. All right, let's go back to the trial.
A lot of things you have to do, right? You have to weigh the lungs and the spleens, and you do all these different tests. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's just normal protocol in any of these cases?
Yes.
And you do that because obviously you want to make sure you do everything you possibly can in order to make a proper determination as to cause of death.
Yes.
Now, your opinion in this case was that the wound was not caused by the throwing of a knife, correct?
I'm not an expert in knife throwing. I don't know whether the person who's charged with this is a knife thrower. As a hypothetical, my opinion is it was a stab wound. But if you give me other information that the person is a knife thrower, they throw knives and they throw them into targets and whatnot, then maybe this could have been a knife that was thrown.
Okay, well, we're going to break that down. Before we do, I want to ask you a couple of things. I know that you eventually, you did review this preliminary report, you said. Were there any other reports that you reviewed in this case? For example, the fire rescue report?
No, not that I recall.
Okay. Any other supplemental reports from the detective?
No.
Did you review Ms. Clenny's statement to the police?
No.
Would you agree that perhaps there could have been something in her statement, facts, important facts, that could maybe change your determination as to the outcome?
As to cause and manner of death?
As to, not the cause of the death, but as to that it wasn't by a knife being thrown?
Repeat the question again.
Is it possible that by reviewing her statement completely, it could possibly have changed your determination that a knife could not have been thrown in this case?
It could have, yes.
So let's look to the evidence of the injury that is another section in your report, right?
Yes,
Okay. And first of all, when you received the body, the wound was sutured, right?
yes,
And that's just normal because when the person goes to the hospital will do that and give it to you, or not necessarily?
not necessarily.
Okay. Is it fair to say by suturing it, it might change how you can observe the body in its, I guess, most natural form of when the incident occurred?
That's fair to say, yes.
And you don't know if, you weren't there, so you don't know what fire rescue personnel might have done, paramedics did for life-saving techniques, right?
That's correct.
And you don't know what kind of life-saving techniques the doctors at the hospital performed either, right?
That's correct.
So you receive the body, you remove the sutures, and then you observe the stab wound, which I believe in your report you testified is 4 by 1.5 centimeters, correct?
When I remove the sutures, yes.
Yes, and again, when you remove the sutures, we don't know if that wound is the same wound I don't mean the same wound. I mean, we don't know if it's the same size as when the stabbing originally occurred.
Well, of course. But okay, so I have a question, you guys. Did they say that the weapon was removed before the paramedics got there? Did anybody pick up on that? Because I totally lost that part. I missed it. They did. I think if it had been, that would have been really, really bad. I don't know. Did they say?
Occurred, right?
I don't know if the hospital physicians did something to the wound. That's correct.
Okay, and 4 by 1.5 centimeters, that would be equivalent to 1.5 inches by half an inch. I did the mathematics. I'm just not a centimeter person, so I put it into inches.
I think an inch is like 2.5 centimeters. So you're talking more about 3 inches
Okay,
in length
okay.
or 2 inches in length.
Well, the 8 centimeters, which is the depth of the wound, is 3 inches. So would you agree that the 4 centimeters is going to be
It's
half
shorter.
of that?
That's correct.
So 1.5 inches?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to do the math.
I understand. And according to your report, you put that the wound, that it was a slightly downward angle. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, I looked up the definition of slightly in the dictionary, but is there a medical term for slightly?
No.
Okay, so I got small or inconsequential. Does that sound fair to say to you?
It just went down a little bit.
Just a little bit. And do you ever give percentages, or
No.
that's not something?
No.
Okay, so you can't tell us exactly, I'm going to say this in this downward angle. It's not a downward angle like this, right?
Yes, that's
When you
correct.
say slightly, if we're taking something, it's going to be just a slight angle.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you agree that when a person, if somebody were standing face to face and stabbing somebody, would you agree that it would depend on the height of the individuals, of the two people?
The injury?
Well, potentially, how slight it goes in. It could be based upon the entry wound, could depend upon the height differences of the two people.
When I describe wounds in the body, we're looking at the body in anatomic position, lying on the autopsy table. When something happens to a person, if they're shot or stabbed or beat, they don't stay in anatomic position. They move. So I can't tell you in what position the person during the stabbing was in and in what position the person being stabbed was in. They could have been bending over. They could have been bending back. They could have been on their knees. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair to say. So it would be clear that you don't know if, for example, Abu Seli was leaning forward and going to aggressively attack Ms. Clenny, right?
That's correct.
Which would then move his body forward and could affect the angle of how a knife goes into his body.
That's correct.
Also, the fact that she's 5'8" and he's 6 foot, which is a 4-inch difference, that's not something you're taking into consideration in your examination.
That's correct.
Now, the location of the wound was the upper chest right side.
Yes.
And that fair to say, like near the shoulder?
Yes.
Okay, and for the record, I'm pointing to my shoulder area on the right side. You noted that it was a front to back, which just means from the front of the person going inward towards the back, is
Yes.
that right? Okay. Now, and I'm assuming this is because of the anatomical position of the body, but you didn't mention if it was like at an angle, coming crosswise, or straight on? Was it straight on?
It was straight on, yes.
Okay, so if hypothetically Courtney is right-handed and the wound is on the right side and she did stab him versus throwing the knife, she would have had to have been offset from him to be able to put the knife straight into his right side, right?
It depends on how he's standing. If he's just standing in anatomic position, yes. If he's moving, I cannot tell you in what position the person who was stabbed was in or what position the person who was doing the stabbing was in. I can just tell you what I see on the body.
Okay. And in your report, you document that the wound is approximately 8 centimeters, which we said was 3 inches, right?
Yes.
It's about 3 inches. You understand that the knife was removed before the paramedics arrived? Did you know that information?
I didn't know that information. I did see a picture of the knife.
Okay. And let me ask you this, because if a person were to, and the testimony from Courtney was that Abunselli removed the knife himself. If a person is in shock from having been stabbed and they go to grab the knife, it is possible that the knife could be pushed in a little further. Would you agree with me?
I'd agree with that, yes.
And it would be impossible to know exactly. I mean, you couldn't give a certainty as to how much exactly it could be pushed in, right?
I can't know.
And obviously, if the knife is in and you pull it out and it was in an artery, blood is going to really start coming out, right?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that the pressure used to have the force to put a knife into a body would be 8 to 12 pounds to get through the skin. Is that a fair statement of your testimony on direct?
People have done experiments on cadavers, putting knives through different parts of the body, cartilage, bone, skin, and they have described it as being 7 point something to 11.9 pounds to go through the skin. So 8 to 12, yes.
Now, knowing that this was in the subclavian artery, it didn't go through bone?
No.
Okay, so it went through muscle and then the artery is right underneath the muscle?
Subcutaneous tissue, muscle, and then the arteries down there, yes.
Okay, so you're not sure exactly how much pressure, but estimating based upon experiments, you think approximately 8 to 12 pounds.
Yes.
Now, that's quite a bit of pressure. Would you agree with that? That's not just like me standing here and just like straight putting a knife into somebody's body, right? You have to really
push
put
it
some
in.
pressure.
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree with me that it would be more the pressure? The more you can move your hand back and move something, you're going to get more force to it, right? Just like a baseball, if I'm throwing a ball, I'm going to get more pressure and it's going to fly farther than if I just hold it like this and just kind of throw it like that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So did you see any defensive wounds on Mr. Abunselli?
No.
All right. Now, let me ask you this. On the autopsy dictation, if you want to refer to that, sir, it has height and weight. Can you tell me, I with your handwriting, I apologize, the weight, what does that say, sir?
Which form are you looking at?
It's called the autopsy dictation. If you
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about his weight.
200.
Okay. That's a 0 and a 0. It looks like
Yes.
a 2.6.
No, it's 200.
Okay, and what's the 2.7 underneath it?
It's BMI.
BMI, okay. So 200. And if I told you that Courtney was 150, then the decedent Abunselli had 50 pounds on her. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
And 4 inches.
Yes.
So
And
You had a
as you
weapon.
say, like having to go back and pressure and everything like that, you didn't see anything from Abunselli of putting his hands up or anything like that.
I didn't see any defensive injuries on his arms or hands. No.
Okay. You would agree that somebody who is 6 foot tall has a farther reach than somebody who is 5'8"?
Depending on the length of their arms, yes.
okay, first of all, she could have come at him from the side with that wound. She didn't have to come where that wound is at. She could have come in from the side where he wasn't even expecting it. You know what I foresee, and this is just me talking, like salacious speculation. You guys, I can see him standing like that as they're arguing. She's on the phone with his mom, or her mom, he's ranting and raving, and he's probably like not even looking at her, right? Let's just say he's not looking at her, and got the kitchen counter in front of him. And then all of a sudden, she's so mad because she's not getting the response out of him that she wants. Or maybe she's not getting the response out of her mom that she wants. And what does she do? She grabs the closest thing. And bam! She surprised him. Exactly. A name was here. Exactly.
Now, would you agree that it's also possible to, for somebody stabbing somebody, they could possibly have self-inflicted wounds? Isn't that possible?
Oh, really?
And that's because I think they call it slippage, right? Because of so much blood, the knife could slide back and it could cause cuts on the person's hand, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Judge, if I can have a moment.
Oh, y'all see where she's going? Because Courtney didn't have any slices on her hand. That means she didn't do it. She did actually. That means she did throw it. Look, maybe she did throw it, you guys. Maybe she did. It doesn't matter. Does it really matter? You know what I mean? Even if she did, which we don't think she did, but even if she did, it doesn't. It's still she was using force to cause harm on someone. So it's not going to change the case. I don't understand why they keep trying to go down this road. She had her back to him. He held out the sub. She spun around and boom. Yeah, well, could be. Name, it could be. There's no way with all that video evidence they're not going to put her under the jail.
I'm showing you defendant's exhibit S. Sir, can you see that? All right, these hands.
Yes.
Okay,
look.
and were you able to see crime scene photos in this case? Were you able to observe did they give you the crime scene photos to look at?
I did see some crime scene photos. Yes.
Okay, so this is a photo of Miss Clenny's hands on the date of the incident. She didn't have any kind of self-inflicted injuries from a knife that you can see. Is that fair to say? And I can have a photo come closer to you if it's easier for you, sir.
I'd like to see a closer
Yes,
photo.
let me, do you have?
That one nail. Her nails were horrible looking. Even when they were on.
Yeah, the ones from.
They were too big. Exactly, a name here. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. If you look at how she came at him in the elevator and how the motion of her hand and arms and how she was always going up with her hands at him. She never went down low when she went to hit him or anything. It was always up high around the head or the neck area.
Thank you.
It's those stamp-on nails.
Photographs. Were you able to see any wounds on her that would be consistent with slippage of a knife?
No.
Hold on, just wait a second. Oh, can you turn to the next one, please? Oh, here. Yeah, thank you. Now, you received photos of the knife. I think you said you
I
saw
saw
the knife?
photos of the knife, yes.
Okay. And from your examination of the wound, would you be able to say how sharp the knife was?
Not that very sharp.
Just looking at the wound?
Yes.
No.
What about, you see this knife, this kitchen knife, can you tell how thin or thick the knife is by your examination?
By looking at the wound itself?
By looking at the wound, yes, sir?
No.
And what about by examining the knife itself?
You could, are you getting at whether I can tell whether that was the knife that did this particular thing?
Well, let's assume it is.
Okay.
I don't think there's any disagreement with that. So my question would be, if you had the knife to examine, would that help you in determining whether it is thin or thick or sharp?
Yes.
No. Now, you would agree that a knife that is thin is able to penetrate deeper into a body than one that is dull, right?
One that is sharp would be.
Yes, one that is sharp,
Yes.
excuse me.
Yes.
But not just sharp, one that is thin versus thicker is what my question really was.
It depends on how sharp the knife is, not
Okay.
necessarily thin or thick.
Now, in this case, this is the Global Cromova stainless steel knife, GS14. It's a very sharp and thin knife. Did you do any research into this knife before
No.
you made your
It's not his
determination?
job.
No,
Did you get any information on the weight of the knife?
no,
You do understand that the weight of a knife can make a difference when it is thrown through the air, right?
I'm not an expert in knife throwing.
Are you aware that the distribution of the weight can make a difference on the rotation of the knife in the air as it is thrown?
As a novice in this particular thing, I would be aware of that, yes.
Okay. And are you aware the more a knife weighs, the deeper it can penetrate a body?
When throwing it,
Yes, sir.
that I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Would you agree with me that throwing a knife into a stationary object could be different than throwing a knife into a moving object?
Yes,
And that's because a knife throwing has velocity, and a person moving in that same direction has a certain velocity as well, right?
yes,
And you were made aware that Abumseli aggressively moved towards Courtney at the time. She states she threw the knife, right?
that's the information that I have, yes.
You understand that a knife gains speed as it travels?
That I don't know.
Distance is important in a knife being thrown?
As a novice, that probably is correct, but I want to say again, I'm not an expert in knife throwing.
This is the
I am an
defense
expert in
attorney.
what knives do to people.
All right. But having said that, your opinion is that Courtney could not have thrown this knife, right?
As a hypothetical, the hypothetical that I was given, I said that what I see on the body is consistent with the person being stabbed. If I get other information that the person doing that had the knife is a knife thrower, that this is the type of knife that you could throw and it will go into a target, then I might have another opinion.
Well, you're saying knife thrower, but a person doesn't have to be an expert knife thrower to actually hit a target. Isn't that true?
That I don't know.
Okay, the whole knife throwing thing. Can we just talk about this for a minute, please? Good night, Lenny, honey. Would you have to be an expert knife thrower to make that happen? No. I mean, well, but okay. I can't even throw a dart and make it hit the dartboard, you guys. How am I going to pick up a knife and throw it and make it stick to the target? There's got to be more difficulty involved. I've never thrown one to try to make it stick to anything, I don't think. Have you guys ever tried it, like when you were little or anything, throwing one to like hit a tree or something? I'm sure one of you guys have. You're right. He's not a knife throwing expert. He said it multiple times. He's a doctor. Right? I know. I don't know. I just don't think that it just goes back to the whole thing was that the intent was there. No matter how it got to his body, it was a weapon. She went after him with it. She did what she wanted to do with it. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with trying to make a sense of, I guess this is all they got. Is this all the defense has? Is this it? Are they going to try to make it seem like, well, this is kind of what I pictured going down the road with this trial. The defense, because she's talked about it in her other videos, that she threw glass a lot, right? She threw glass at him, like glasses in the kitchen. So they're going to say, well, just like a glass, she would throw at him. She threw the knife at him, and she had no idea what she was trying to do when she did it. It was just like there, just like a kitchen glass, and she just picked it up and threw it. I can see the defense trying to bring that into the picture. I don't think it's going to help, but if you think about it, I mean, as a defense attorney, what else do you got? You got nothing to work with here. There's so much evidence against her. I mean, this is just bad. So this is really bad for the defense.
Have you seen there are millions of YouTube videos out there with people who are knife throwing and they're not experts?
I don't watch YouTube.
Did
You don't watch YouTube?
consult with a knife throwing expert?
No, I did not.
Did you do any research into knife throwing?
No, I did not.
Have you written any kind of articles or published anything regarding knife throwing?
No, I have not.
You agree that a person could generate a lot of power in a throw based on adrenaline?
This is speculation.
He's an expert, Judge. Well, the government's opinion is that she couldn't have thrown it. So we should be able to rebut that opinion by asking him questions about it. They put that into evidence. So, sir, you cannot say that Courtney Plenty did not throw this knife, can you?
That's correct.
And your autopsy was performed on April 4th, and I know the toxicology was signed off on May 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes.
When did you speak to the state attorney's office and let them know what your opinion was, if you recall?
I spoke to someone in the state attorney's office in June of this year, end of June, I believe. And I also spoke to someone in the state attorney's office last week or the week before.
Okay, so before June, though, was there anything more to your report other than after May 2nd, when you signed off on the toxicology? Anything else you needed to perform to close out your portion of the case?
No.
Okay, so as of May 2nd, you had your opinion. On the end of June, you spoke to the state attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay, and the charges here were filed, you're aware, in the middle of August?
I don't know.
Okay, may I have a moment? Sir, all your testimony, your conclusions, they're all documented in your report. Is that correct?
In the autopsy report?
Yes, you've documented all of your conclusions in your report.
I documented the autopsy in the report,
Okay.
yes.
I noticed that there's nowhere in your report that says your opinion on the hypothetical was that the knife couldn't have been thrown. Is that something that would go into a report?
No, it would not.
It would not. And there's no reason for you to file any kind of supplemental report in
That's
this
correct.
case? Okay.
This report has cause of death. The death certificate has cause and manner of death. If you have other information that, I don't have anything to do with whether it's a death that is a justified homicide or not justified, that's a legal thing. I just know the cause of death is stab wound of right subclavian artery. The manner of death is homicide.
Understood. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Yes, this is pretty good.
We'll watch this a little bit across, and I think then he's going to be done on the stand.
So Dr. Hutchins, the defendant gave a statement in this case, and if she was to tell you this hypothetical was posed to you that she's 10 feet away, so roughly as far as I am from you, and she used the word flung the knife, and you weren't provided any further information that she was a knife throwing expert, is it your opinion that she could not throw the knife?
She said she flung it.
Flung it.
I would say that that is not something that could have happened given the injury that this person has.
Thank you for the question, Judge. Someone say yes.
Yes.
Guess that's it. That's it. Okay. So we're going to finish watching the rest of this tomorrow. Well, no, not tomorrow. Probably Thursday. Wait, tomorrow's no. Yeah, Thursday. It's been a weird week. I mean, we could go over here and look at, let me see something. Let me check, you guys. Let's see. I'm going to go into YouTube. And I'm going to look up expert knife thrower. I hope I don't get in trouble for doing this. I guess I don't want to get this guy mad at me for going. Can I just look at your video really quick, dude? Maybe it'll send you some people if we just look for just a second, okay? We're not going to look at a lot. Okay, this is a news thing.
A little bit of the differences between rotational throwing for accuracy and competition and combative style throwing, which is...
Look at the size of those knives, first of all, okay? Go back just a little bit. Look at the size of those things. They're huge. That's not the same. The one that she had was tiny.
I do both, but you guys know me for combative applications. This would be rotational for accuracy. And this would be combative style throwing, which can be done from anywhere.
You know, that's another thing too. She had to have been really close to him to hit him that high if she threw it. That's another thing too. Could the defense, could the what are they called? Could the prosecution come in and say, yeah, but you know what? If she was going to throw it, she would have had to been pretty high up to throw it, or very close to him, close enough to where it was pretty much just her thrusting it into. I don't want to say too much because I don't want YouTube to ding me, but let me see. Let me go back and see if we can find any other throwers. That's pretty good. Those look like smaller ones. But he brought up a good point. They have to be a certain size. I don't know. Does this bore y'all? Yeah, they always throw with the handle, don't they? I thought they threw with the blade too. Hang on. We'll find some more, guys.
La-di-da-di-da. Listen, Doug. Listen. Good listening, dogs. Very good listening.
He's got the blade in his hand.
I got Big Bob status. Ain't no
See, even that is a particular knife for, you know what I
The
mean?
way that I've found the easiest to throw most types of knives is the military half spin method. All that is you're balancing your knife on your middle finger and your index finger with the blade facing you. Then you take your thumb.
I don't want to watch that.
No.
Okay, I'm going to get off of this because I don't want to get dinged. Throwing knives are flatter than kitchen knives. And kitchen knives are so tiny. I mean, that was a pretty big knife though. It's hard to tell in that picture that they showed of it. I've got the images somewhere. I'll have to pull them back up. Where I want to look back at the size of it again, the size of the knife, and compare it to, like, maybe we'll have to do a side-by-side. I'll do that in another video. We'll do a side-by-side between that and like a knife made for knife throwing. And we'll look at the weight of it. I guarantee the defense is already going to do this. I mean, the prosecution's already going to do this because maybe they feel like they don't even have to, though, really. You can throw both ways. You can learn to throw a blade anyway. It just takes practice. Also, it depends on the size, weight, and distance. Yaki, your crazy self. There's no telling who you... I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It was serrated. Yeah. I don't know, you guys. I don't know what to think of all this. Hang on just a second. Talk amongst yourselves while I look at one thing. One thing I wanted to bring up too. Let me see if I can pull this up on here. So you know how at one point I was like, I don't really think she was doing that much stuff on, like, I didn't really think she was doing too many bad things on OnlyFans. Listen to what Vinny says. He just throws it out there.
Making tons of money, taking off her clothes, and performing sexual activity on a subscription website called OnlyFans. Sometimes Christian would get in the act as well.
Wait, I don't think I was done. Hang on.
Courtney Clenny also made money taking her clothes off and performing certain acts, sometimes alone and sometimes with her boyfriend, Christian Obonselli.
And sometimes with lots of females. Lots of females. So all those trips they were going to, like, they called them collaboration trips and stuff. They'd like rent a place, like rent a cabin or something, like when they went to Aspen. And they were doing productions at those places when they weren't, gallivanting or whatever. They were there to work. Yep. Because when I first started watching her videos, like when she was younger and stuff, I just thought, no, she's probably just showing so much, or she's got some really skimpy lingerie on and she's just talking dirty to him. I really thought that, you guys. I honestly did, because I'm sure that there are people on OnlyFans that do just that. No. According to that, and then in Miami podcast she did. I don't want to. I gotta trim that down. I'm gonna show that to y'all too. But she's on there on this podcast, and they're on a podcast, but they're videotaping, they're recording them while they're doing the podcast, and she's on there with all these other women that are just they're OnlyFans women too, and they're proud of being OnlyFans women. One woman has she's gross. She's got why even wear a top? You know what I mean? Like, why even bother? And then another woman that's sitting in the back of the room and on the other end of the table, she's got like a mask on her face, like, because she's into that crazy, what do they call it? BD? Is it called BDM? What's it called? What's that called, y'all? Like gray. What is that movie? Gray? Shades of Gray. You all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that kind of stuff. Yes, that's it. Whatever that means. Yeah. So, Now, what you said. So it's quite obvious. And then they talk about being together and stuff. Shades of Gray. Thank you. 40, 50 Shades of Gray, 30, 20, whatever it was. But they do talk about the women being together awful lot. I think she did more of that, just in what I've seen, like the different things I've picked up on so far, than she did with other stuff with men. I don't even know if she did other stuff with men, to be honest, because maybe she felt like if she did, she'd be cheating on Christian. And I'm not trying to victim blame it all here, but I want to bring, I don't understand, if you're with somebody in a relationship and they do something like that for a living, how you could be comfortable with that. You know? One of the women talk about how he readily handed over whatever type of narcotic or drink that she needed to get her into what she was doing. Christian wasn't a saint in all of this by any means. He was in this lifestyle in this world too, and he was living it large just like she was. But I still think that when you dumb it all down, at the end of the day, she was abusive towards him, and at the end, it ended badly. Yeah, like Laura said, he worked for her, so he was involved, and she used that against him so much. Like I said before in one of my other videos, I felt like her being an employee of his did not help the situation whatsoever. She was already trying to be a know-it-all with him and telling him what to do, and don't act innocent. And that kind of stuff makes me uncomfortable. I can't help it. No money, according to her. Oh, Laura said without her, he would have no money, according to her. Yeah, I mean, that's not true. I don't think he was making that much money. He might have been able to survive on his own with the money he was making, but he wouldn't have been able to have a lifestyle that he had with her. If you think about it, that's two different levels altogether. Don't say that, oh, well, he wouldn't even, without me, he wouldn't have anything. That may not be true. If he didn't have her, he might have been out doing his own thing and working a real job and making enough money to have his own. I gotta sneeze. Hang on. Excuse me. To have his own, place or whatever it is, his own money. But I wonder if she even controlled. No, she didn't control the money. That's another thing too, though, that they're going to probably use here in this trial. If you think about it, you know how abusers will control the money. They control who you see and all that. I think that she was controlling. I don't think she was controlling the money. I think she had somebody else controlling her, not controlling it, but handling it for her. And they probably just gave her, her debit card and told her, here, we'll do everything else for you. And I'm sure he had one of her debit cards. Like the dad made the comment that they couldn't find her debit card. She'd probably given it to him. She lost everything, you guys. Even her key fob to the elevator, she had lost at one point. She'd only lived there she moved in January and she lost her key fob in March. The woman was a mess. Her dad controlled her money. I don't think he did I don't think he controlled her money until after all this happened. You think her dad had more control over her money before all this happened? I don't know. Yeah, he'd have his own life name. Exactly. So it is a little bit different that way, I guess, and than other circumstances than, what you see in normal, if it's normal, in other abusive situations. But it's kind of like, somebody that has that much money. JP said, Trish, when you have that much money, you have somebody else doing everything for you. That's why I like this whole Diddy thing. He's gonna say, like, when it comes to his money, somebody else was controlling his money. He had somebody else doing all that. Like, that's how these people get away. These really rich people. I'm not saying she falls in this category, but like all these rich people, that's how they get away with it. Because they're like, well, I didn't have total control of it. Daddy never made her responsible for anything, Mel. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. She always ran to him to fix whatever needed to be fixed. I think that's why she left California. I think she got into that trouble with the DUI, and Dad says, come home. You're not doing good up there. Come home. It's okay, Daddy. And then, probably, I wonder if that whole DUI and that thing with that guy, Sean Roden, if that all happened around the same time. So she comes back home. Then she starts working at a strip club. I agree that the bruises on her were from her. Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah. Hey, Louise. Yeah, you are late. We're fixing to close down. I just think that he had to have, her dad had to have known all the stuff she was doing, you guys. I bet mom knew. And I'm not saying that mom might have known some stuff that she kept from dad. That's pretty normal, I think, sometimes, because men can be a little bit freaky about their daughters, but still. Anyway, okay, so off topic. I appreciate you guys sticking in for this one, watching it with me. We'll pick up on Thursday. We'll pick back up on this, and we'll watch the rest of this part 2 hearing or day 2 hearing, and we'll finish up on it. And then I've got some other stuff I want to put out too. JPC, I didn't. So that Tennessee versus Chin trial, that happened too quick for me. I was thinking it was going to be starting today. I don't know. I just wasn't prepared. I'm still trying to wrap up some things from that scam that hit my computer. So I apologize that it doesn't look like we're going to be following that one, you guys. And 2, I got in there and the audio was horrible in the courtroom. And I was just like, ugh, yeah, I can't do this. I wanted to tell you guys, somebody brought this to my attention, and I apologize that I don't have your name on the tip of my tongue. One of the subs had sent me an email and told me to look up a channel called Scammer Payback. Have you guys ever watched that channel? Oh, Laura said she said that the night it happened, she wanted to call her dad because he handled it. That's true. Yeah, I remember her saying that. She said that to the cops. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, it's a snooze fest. His lawyer said he was guilty in opening statements. That Tennessee versus Chin. Are you kidding me? Oh, my goodness. What time Thursday? A name here says. Oh, I like this time slot coming on about between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern or Central Standard Time. So this Scammer Payback channel, you guys, y'all have to go check it out. In fact, you know what? Let's watch one of. I don't think they'll ding me. Let's because I'm sending you guys to their channel. So hang on just a second. I have been watching. In fact, I've been spending too much time watching them a little. Just because I'm trying to find some signs and stuff of what they have, of what they show. Let me see. I watched one of these. All right, I'm going to pull this up so you guys can see it. It's funny. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing anymore. Can y'all see it? So it's called Scammer Payback. This is their logo. It's freaking hilarious.
What happens when we speak a scammer's language?
What did you say right now?
Nothing. So why do you think it's important to know?
So they go online and they call these scammers up. And I guess one of the biggest scams that happens to a lot of people is that you'll get like an email from PayPal. And I've gotten these emails. I know exactly what they're talking about. You'll get an email from that. It looks completely legit. It comes from PayPal and it says that, you know, something about your charge or we owe you a refund or something. It's something that's going to make you take action. Well, what they do is there's always a phone number on these emails. So what they do is they call these phone numbers, and these guys are so good. They're like, they need to be on. They need more exposure. That's why I wanted to show it to you guys, because I really think that these guys are going to make a huge difference. I wish there were. I'm sure there are more people out there like them, but I was so impressed with the way they do stuff. So here you go.
The scammer's language.
A lot of times they talk about their victims behind their back, but when we know what they're saying, we've got the upper hand.
Send me a photo of all the money. Send me a photo of all the cash. What did you say?
I'm sorry?
What did you say right now?
Nothing.
You said Terry Makabur?
No, I did not.
You just said that. It's recorded.
No, I didn't.
It is recorded.
I didn't say anything. Say anything. No, listen.
He makes the
How to scare a
scammers so
scam call.
he makes the scammers so mad. It's funny. And somebody made a comment like, if you get scammed and you're on a scammer phone call or whatever, yeah, he scams the scammers, exactly. And if you're like on another, if you're on a phone call with them and you're not sure whether or not they're scammers, if you say something and they get real testy real easily, that's usually a sign that they're scammers. Who said that the other day? Was it Laura? I don't remember who was at it, but
Center into shutting down. The first thing we got to do is find out what building they're in, what floor they're on, and the room that they're operating out of.
I'll call them pretending to be a victim,
Cancellation helping desk, sir. How can I help you?
and then I'll let them know we know everything about them.
Let's do it.
The institute in for room.
It's not in Bengal or somewhere like that.
Where is it?
In West Bengal.
No, it's not.
On the
It's
12th
not.
floor. You're not on the 12th floor?
No, it's not. Fucking idiot. What
You're
are you
not
talking
on,
about?
You're not on the 12th floor?
No.
You don't,
It's on your deck.
you don't work for Krishnendu Bishnu?
No.
Are you sure?
No, who the f you are?
You don't work for Krishnendu, do you?
No, we are not.
Really?
And who is the hell
So
you?
you're not in room 1203 right now?
You, man.
You're not on room 1203?
Sorry, the number you dialed.
he flips it around on them, but they go out and they shut people down too. They've shut down a couple of scamming organizations, and yeah, it's always it's always the where I've seen them. It's in they did one in Nigeria not too long ago, but most of these are in India, and he does pick up on some of the language that they speak, and that's pretty cool how he flips that around on them. But he's so big that a lot of these guys know who he is. A lot of these scammers know who he is. It's really like, you'll have to go down that rabbit hole, you guys. They have let me show you their channel. This is their main channel, but they have a lot of great videos. Very well edited. Wow, I'm so impressed by how they must do really well on YouTube, because I'm so impressed how they got all this set up. They've got a great editor and everything. But it's not just somebody trying to be funny. He's literally trying to get in there and save people's money. And a couple times what he did, like one of them I was watching earlier today, he goes in and he's like, the guy was trying to get an Uber to get this lady money or get the money from this lady because they had somebody in her area that could pick up the cash from her. And he kept going online and canceling the Uber. He went to school for cyber crimes. Is that what it is, Laura? He finds out where they live and their family members' names, even photos. Yep. He puts their photos up, and he'll call them out right on stream. He'll put their pictures up. It's so cool to watch. I don't want to play anymore because I don't want to, try to hijack their content or anything. I just want to give him a shout out. So if you guys haven't watched it, yeah, he is brilliant. It is. And it's not just him. He's got a team, but yeah, it's kind of funny to watch him, how he deals with some of these people. Like he'll call up now, like he's an old lady and he'll talk real slow. And you could tell that he's like making the process really long and drawn out so that he's slowing them down from getting to other people. And I think in some cases he's even been able to get on this side of the United States, in the United States, he's been able to get to people to like get the police involved so that they can't go through with the end process of what they're trying to do. So, yeah. I mean, the reason I was really got into this was because I was trying to figure out like exactly what are they going to do? Like once they get your information, what exactly do they do? Now, the people that he's dealing with, they're going to take your information. And these are the guys that want you to go out and buy a gift card and then mail your gift card to them or give them a gift card code over the phone. I know you guys have heard of those scams. It's a lot of that. He does also deal with some people like this. And this is the same scam I think I got caught up in when my channel got hacked, where you call like you're calling for support and you need Google support. You need support with your checking account, something like that. These guys literally have hacked things to where when you Google search for phone numbers, they've got their number in there. And when you call them, you got to listen to when they've answered the phone because sometimes they'll say customer support. Sometimes they won't. I remember when I called, I said, "Are you Google support?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah." And then later he tells me on the phone, "Well, we're an independent contractor of Google support," is what he said. Anyway. Laura says, in his older videos, they're more funny because it's more about baiting. These days, it's all about stopping. Yeah, I like to see him put him, get him down, though. I think now that he's bigger, he's able to make more of a difference. And that's where he's getting people to, people see he's legit, which means he's going to get more support from law enforcement. But it also showed in one of these videos how, like in India, there's a lot of law enforcement over there that's involved in the scam. They get cutbacks and stuff. So he was trying to originally he would try to call India over there and try to get their law enforcement involved, and they would just tell him, "You need to call your local law enforcement, sir. We can't help you from here." Really shady stuff. Yeah, I'm telling you, when I called that number, everything that I thought I did everything right, and it surprises me how much power I gave to that I gave to Google. And I think that's the problem is that with the guys that hacked me, they were interested in that BC stuff. And they were Mark said he saw part of the stream that went live after they hijacked my channel. Did anybody else see it? It was in the morning. It was it was probably between 7 and 9 in the morning last Friday. And he said, I could tell you weren't involved in it at all. I could tell it wasn't you because it was nothing like you. And so I looked it up and there's this guy that sells this type of currency. Let's leave it at that. He sells a type of currency and they've used him in all these scams. Patty, you watched part of the video? Were they trying to sell something or were they, how, that's what that's what I was trying to understand is what do they get out of it? I don't understand how that works. Somehow or another, they try to scam you into sending them money or buying some types of currency or something. I don't know. It's crazy. But it makes me want to know more as much as I can about it now, because I want to know if I'm safe or if I still have to worry about stuff to still come up the road. I think I still have to worry about things coming down the road. So I'm still keeping an eye out on my things, but gonna have to get me a VPN and everything else. All right. Well, it's getting late. And I want to say thank you for all you guys joining me. They tell you to send. Laura spelled it the wrong way. She spelled it funky, but Laura, you're not supposed to do that. We weren't going to put that on the channel. It's a currency. All right, guys. Well, I will talk to you very soon. Probably Thursday. We'll be back, okay? Y'all be good. Thanks for joining. Stay blessed. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.